Korea has risen up and changed it into a socialist paradise from ruins caused by the unprecedented barbarous war in history of the world. The Korean people, under the wise leadership of the great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung and the Workers' Party of Korea, established a socialist fatherland good to live in, where everything was under ruins by the war. The greater the happiness of the Korean people today is, the further they will not forget barbarities of the cursed U.S. imperialists who made havoc of this land during the Fatherland Liberation War. The U.S. imperialists, who had stretched their sinister tentacles of aggression to Korea already from over a century, broke out a war in Korea on June 25, 1950. And atrociously bombed towns and villages, factories and enterprises from the first day of the Korean War. The beautiful city Pyongyang was also destroyed in the early days of the war like this. During the 3-year-long Korean War, the U.S. imperialists dropped more than 428,000 bombs of all kinds, the quantity exceeding that of the city's population, thus making havoc of the city. The U.S. imperialists, who made havoc of even small villages in Mountain Valley, to say nothing of 78 cities, burned up all precious assets of the Korean people with napalms and fire bombs. Raving that they'd bury in heaps of debris everything alive and astir on the land of Korea, the U.S. imperialists mercilessly murdered people of all ages and both sexes by showering bombs and fire bombs and using even German chemical weapons. In the countryside, too, a total of over 371,000 hectares of cultivated areas was destroyed, and over 109,000 draft cattle were killed by their barbarous bombing. On May the 13th and the 14th, 1953, the U.S. imperialist air pirates demolished Sogam Reservoir as a target of bombing where there are no military installations, thus bringing such a disaster upon the Korean people as this. More than 8,700 factories and enterprises which had been built for 5 years after the liberation turned into piles of scrap iron due to the US bombing and naval bombardment. Railways, the arteries of the country, were also destroyed. Over 70% of locomotives, 65% of freight cars, some 400 tunnels, over 4,000 iron bridges, and more than 30,000 railway tracks were destroyed by the US imperialists, leaving them to such a grim scenes. Raving that he had turned Korea into a permanent war museum, the US imperialists mercilessly bombed the hospitals painted with Red Cross marks, to say nothing of newspaper offices and public facilities. They also showered rocket bombs upon schools, where children were heard reading books, and nurseries where lovely babies were sleeping and their toys. The US imperialists, who alleged themselves to be the most civilized in the world, destroyed and burned down over 7,800 valuable cultural assets. There remained nothing intact but ruins if you looked around across the country. The US imperialists turned entire Korea into ruins by dropping an average of 18 bombs per 1 square kilometers of the land during the 3-year-long war. On July the 27th, 1953, the Korean people won victory in the war, defeating the US imperialists, who had never lost a battle in its aggressive war of over 110 times. But Korea was destroyed too severely by the war. The Korean people fully demonstrated the mettle of the heroic Korea in rehabilitation and reconstruction of the country too, with the speed they had displayed in the war against the US imperialists. The constructors who had converted hatred against the US imperialists to enthusiasm have built up modern cities and factories across the country. This was the looks of the then Pyongyang, whose name was left alone on the map right after the ceasefire. After turning into debris a lot of cities and the countryside in Korea, the US imperialists claimed that even after the elapse of 100 years, Korea wanted to be rebuilt. However, the Korean people, united single-heartedly around the party and the leader, has built such a modern city as you see now. Our constructors and citizens, with unparalleled audacity and big heart, devoted their efforts, creating the Pyongyang speed and Cholima speed, to build Pyongyang where there are nothing but ashes into world-famous capital city. Hamhung was destroyed beyond recognition, but a heroic working class and people rose up like phoenix and has built such a modern city. Wonsan was also severely ruined, but it is now converted into a beautiful port city for cultural recreation within a few years. Anju, which once lost its former view, has turned into a youth city. In Nampur and many other places, communist ideal villages were built where people lead a happy and worthwhile life. The iron and steel plants, which represented the iron history of New Korea, were severely devastated, but the Korean people has set up modern bases of iron on a larger scale. Those machine plants and large machine production bases with modern equipment show the indomitable spirit of the Korean people. Chemical factories have been reconstructed in a modern way within a short space of time. These are light industry factories which have newly been built on the vacant grounds where once acid dust was flying. Our people were at a loss on the waterfront where even small wooden boats had been destroyed. But now they've become masters of shipbuilding industry, launching large ships to oceans. Modern barrages and a lot of reservoirs built over the rough sea and across the big rivers have converted our country into a more beautiful one. During the war, irrigation facilities were all devastated, but now everywhere in this land, life-giving water is flowing. The socialist countryside of Korea, irrigated by many rivers and reservoirs, completely freed from the ruins of the war, has now turned into a paradise where the crops are abundant. Korean children, who had once lost the cradle of learning, are now growing up to be pillars of the country at schools equipped with up-to-date facilities. Situated in the best place of Pyongyang is the Grand People Study House, a modern library. All the scientific research institutes, cultural facilities, public service establishments manifest a true superiority of man-centered social system of Korean type. The U.S. imperialists, professing themselves to be a spoil of the god, destroyed and burnt all the cultural relics created by our ancestors. The Korean people, however, has rehabilitated historic relics and remains as they were. Every public health facility was totally ravaged, bombed by the U.S. imperialists. But today, such wonderful public health establishments have newly been erected in large numbers. The new generation of Korea, who had once lost even their playing ground in the barbarous bombing, are now displaying their wisdom and skill to the full in the modernly equipped sports bases. As the Korean people has struggled assiduously in the spirit of self-reliance, with firm conviction and optimism even on the ruins, they are now leading a happy life with the pride of building grand edifices. Under the wise leadership of the great leader Comrade Kim Il-sung and the dear leader Comrade Kim Jong-il, Korea, which has risen from the ruins, will prosper forever and ever.